next on the Sister Show today.
I think we can deal with this topic honestly and not talk about feminism and religion at the same time. Because religion, I don't know what you guys think, but for me personally, I have my take on it and I'll reserve it.
We have to bring a certain conversation to the table, which is a conversation of, but are you saying because the Bible or the Quran or because religion has put it in such a manner that the man is the leader?
Most of the Quran was actually translated to us by men. So I think there's a little bit of bias when they translate to kind of make it more favoritism towards men.
I'm not saying don't bring in the women, but at least bring in the women that are qualified.
We don't want to be in a workplace to just be a prop. We want to be hired because we are qualified for that position.
Whether the old regime likes it or not, the game is going to change.
That's going to come back to bite in everyone that's fighting for feminism itself.
Trending topics around the world, whether it's in the news or whether it's in social media, and for us to talk it out and have a conversation around it. Who has it the worst? It's on social media right now.
I think the question is a no-brainer.
Black men have it worse than the women.
I'm not on Ole's side. Think about the Black women, how much they're having to go through. They're single parents, they're having to do a lot of things.
So would you trade yourself to be a man then? Because I don't think any of us would want to be a man. So
we all know that women go through hell in society.
Ole, you're not going to have my back. You're going to pretend they're not talking.
There's not much for her to say because it's the honest truth, yeah?
Let's just face the facts. This generation and this day, men are just lazy. Point blank, period. I don't care what anyone says.
Of the hot soup conversation. And of course,
this is actually not the first time that it has emerged. Usually it comes around whenever there's a depression or recession or times like this, that type of return on investment, 600% on your money. So that would tell you that there's something fishy.
I wouldn't put my money on this, and that's just my personal opinion.
I'm glad you wouldn't put your money in it because in the state of Texas, it's actually illegal.
Because when you put your money in the bank, you can get interest, and then in Islam, that's haram. Islam is very against economic injustice.
I'll talk to God later. So, Ole, what you say about this? Have a conversation with God. Obvious, we cannot talk about feminism and not deal with the issues with religion and feminism at the same time. As much as we love our religions and we look at it as something sacred to us, do you guys think that it also has issues in there when it comes to feminism, to hold feminism back, the movement back?
When you look at the history, most of the things that is said in the Quran, you would tend to understand that there's a lot of value on women. But then when we go back in our culture too, and you see how many women know the Quran, it's not as much. Most of the Quran was actually translated to us by men. So I think there's a little bit of bias when they translate to kind of make it more favoritism towards men. But I look at the Quran like there's a surah that was dedicated just for women, but there's no surah that is dedicated for men. Just looking at that, I think Islam has a lot to offer women and has a lot of value in terms of equality. There is a lady that is by the name of Khawla bin Azwar back in the days during the war, who used to dress as a man just so she can fight to prove that she was as strong as the counterpart, the male counterpart. And I think these are stories that are not actually said. So right now, when you look at most of the Islamic countries, you have a lot of things that are forbidden to be practiced by females. Like recently, I think it was just a couple of years ago when it was approved for Saudi women to start driving. But then when you go back in the Quran as well, it tells you how much you should value women.
When we talk about feminism, that it's women trying to fight 50-50 in the homes. But to me, my understanding is that it's more of the equality of access, equality of pay. So it's more outside kind of like opportunities that women can get that we also want 50-50, like in the seat of the table, in decision making, in the corporate world, etc. But not necessarily bringing it back to the homes because, of course, we all know like men and women will never be the same. But I think it's more of equality, not sameness.
Islam really does value women. When we talk about how Islam views women, I think That's always a misconception that people have out there, that Islam may view women a little bit less than a man, but that's not the case, because when you look at the Quran, every time the Quran references a man, the Quran always references a woman. It doesn't say a man 50 times or a woman 1 time. So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in terms of the Quran.
I definitely agree, because obviously also in Christianity, there is a certain formula that people follow. If you read the Bible, obviously as Christians, the man is the provider of the house, and the man is put in that role to be the leader of the house, the household. And that again comes back to when we talk about religion, when we talk about culture, we're talking about where it all started and how we were rooted and how we were raised, and of course going back to the word and so forth. Which then again comes back to a place where we have to bring a certain conversation to the table, which is a conversation of, but are you saying because the Bible or the Quran or because religion has put it in such a manner that the man is the leader, are we saying that in the workplace the same thing applies? And that is where we come in and say, in the workplace with the education systems and everything that's put in place, women can get equal qualifications as the men. But again, that is why we are stuck at this juncture, and that is why we are having the back and forth. It's kind of like I need to divorce myself from the belief that I had my whole life, where a man is the ruler and the man is the leader, which also comes again from Christian teaching, it comes again from tradition. And then I need to enter into the new era where we are saying, but a woman can also be a leader. And I think that I agree, everything that is practiced, of course, in Islam and everything that is practiced in Christianity. And it also just comes from a point where a man was obviously always put at the forefront of so many things. But then again, we mustn't mistake this and say that because the Bible or the Quran has put this in place, women should only be entertained at a certain place in their lives and not necessarily in all areas.
So Helen, like, you're absolutely right in terms of like when you mentioned about leadership. I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes from, because in both, like you said, in Christianity and in Islam, in the household, men are the leaders. And I think a lot of people confuse that when they get into the workplace, that, okay, just because usually the man is the leader, that means women cannot lead. And there's a interesting data out there during this COVID pandemic. There's 6 countries in the world that have the lowest COVID cases. And do you guys want to guess who's leading those countries? They're all women. Like all of them. Germany, New Zealand, they have the lowest. And these leaders, what they've exhibited is some very, very critical leadership skills, which one of them is empathy. We all know as women that comes natural to us. The other one is the loving nature of women, honesty, like being open. So that's skills which all of these 6 leaders have exhibited, and that's why the COVID cases are like lowest in the world. And it's interesting that for a very, very long time, women have been told to suppress those types of feelings and to act more like men if we want to get more into leadership roles. So
Helena and Ole, like what you guys both mentioned something that I'm on the other side. Are you guys trying to say that we should separate religion from the everyday situations, which is work and all that stuff? But for me, if you want to do that, it's going to be difficult because, like you said, it's deeply rooted into our culture, into our beliefs. So how can you want someone to be on your side, but then also what they're saying, people are not seeing it the way that it needs to be seen. So how do you fight that battle? It's almost impossible then, because it's a way of being. The religion is a way of life.
I think with that, Chuka, like you're saying, religion is the way of life, and how do you then be yourself and still be the feminist and still be how do you live through both of this, being a Christian or an Islam or which religion ever that you choose? I think maybe then because of the time and era that we are in, I think it's important that maybe at this specific time we call upon, that is our leaders, especially when it comes to churches, when it comes to religion, to educate our men. Because what I always say that there are so many scriptures that we have in the Bible, and I'm sure in the Quran also, there are so many scriptures that speak to different times and different eras. I know within the Bible we have the Old Testament and we have the New Testament. And if you understand the other one and then understand the new one, you will see that there is a difference, and the difference is usually into the new times that we are moving into. So into the new time that we are coming into now, that we are fighting equal rights, and especially that we're pleading at the mercy of women to also be respected and to them also being having a voice. I think it's very important that, especially with the church leaders and with the religion and all of them, the leaders that are in those places, that they come forth and educate our men and the nation and everybody that fellowships with them to understand the importance why this discussion is happening. I think that as religions, we mustn't brush it aside and say, oh no, in religion, this is what we believe and this is how we're going to believe it, because times are changing. What we used to believe in the Old Testament, for example, is not what people believe in the New Testament. So I think then it's also time that we do come forth and use the words to educate the new era and the people at this point of juncture to make them understand why feminism is important.
When we talk about feminism and religion, it is such a controversial topic, and especially in Islam, there has been a lot of stereotypes that surrounds the idea of women being oppressed in Islam. And I think, to me, this is just an idea that the West is trying to shove in our throats to believe. But Islam is one religion that actually advocates a lot for women's rights. And we just have to go back in history and understand the details. And like Jay was saying, it's important for us to educate ourselves when it comes to our religion. And a lot of times, our cultural beliefs kind of drive what how we practice our religion. And sometimes there's a bit of a confusion between the two. A lot of time we think that we're actually talking about religion, while in the main sense it's actually the culture. If we go back in history, the reason why I say that this is a kind of an idea that the West is trying to make us believe, when we go back in history, in the European societies, women back in the day, when they get married, they were almost the properties of their husbands. Women were not allowed to engage in business. They were not financially independent at all. They were simply the properties of their husband. A perfect story to kind of reflect on is the story of our prophet, beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He got married to one of the richest Arabian ladies, and that was Khadija. Khadija was very rich. She had her own business. She even hired the prophet to work for her. And that didn't even stop after they got married. She was financially independent. She was her own boss. So I think when we say that Islam oppresses women, that's a perfect story to dispel that myth.
So moms, where do you think then that whole concept of if Islam suppresses women, and then especially in Africa, right, in the olden ages where women are not supposed to work, right? They're supposed to be just sitting at home being housewives. So do you think that's more of like a cultural concept from like an African perspective rather than from an Islamic perspective?
I think that has a lot to do with our culture. And a lot of times we think that we're practicing religion when we are actually pushing culture and practicing what our culture is. And it's about time for us to be able to differentiate what's religion and what's culture.
What about a country like Saudi Arabia? This is the Middle East. And for them to have oppressed women for this long, for to be able to drive a car, just as you guys say, recently, like 2 years ago, a few years back, that is a very deeply rooted religious country, especially, Islamic country. So what do we have to say about that?
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because just as we have our own cultural beliefs in Africa, that doesn't exempt the Arabs from having their own culture. And a lot of times, they have a lot of cultural beliefs that we tend to think that it's part of Islam. That's why when Jay said that we have to take up the responsibility as Muslims to educate ourselves about our deen, I think that is the biggest weapon that we can actually take for our own selves.
I think I just want to come in there and obviously applaud the part that you say that as people, not only Islams, not only Christians, just in general, we need to educate ourselves about everything that is happening around us.
Educating yourself is part of our deen, is part of, it's part of being a good Muslim, because when you are well educated.
Should I be educating myself more, moms?
I think you should be educating yourself more, of course. Going to school and having a good formal education is part of our deen as Muslims. And I'm sure this is the same in the religion of Christianity as well. Helena, I think you would agree with that.
I know. It says Ikra. Ikra means learn.
Exactly. There you go, Juka. There you go.
I'm not too bad now.
And what I also want to touch on is when it comes to culture and religion, we need to be able to separate the two. There's a big difference between practicing culture and practicing religion. And what most of the times happen is because we're so used to doing things a certain way, and perhaps that people are religious, we tend to say that, no, we are doing this because this is it's Christianity or Islam, and this is what we are taught. There's a very big difference between culture and religion. And I think that also, especially if you're a Christian, if you're Islam, it's very important that you educate yourself.
So this notion that we are not supposed to be educated, that's based on Islam, is definitely cultural, because that's what Islam preaches us to do first, is seek knowledge as far as China and educate yourself so you can educate your kids. And this is something that definitely empowers us more to know that our religions are here to support feminism in everything that we do. I think we should take the responsibility of educating ourselves to be able to differentiate what is culture, what is Islam, what is Christianity, or whatever religion that you may believe or practice. It's really important, because so that way we cannot be manipulated to believe what others do, or at least we can differentiate the two.
So this is the next segment that we have for you guys. I think now it's time to talk about actually feminism in the workplace. But first, we have amazing, fabulous guest that just joined us here. And her name is Jessie. And I'll allow Jessie to introduce herself. We're so delighted that she actually made it just to talk about feminism. And that's how important this topic is to her and, of course, to all of us. Jessie, can you introduce yourself to our lovely audience?
My name is Jessie Jordan. I am a music producer who has been producing professionally for over a decade. I've worked with Beyonce and Pete and the ladies from 3LW and lots of major signed artists. I went to engineering school at Columbia University, which is in New York City. It's an Ivy League engineering school. And I am very used to being in male-dominated arenas. I think that feminism is important because if you noticed, in America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, we've only had the right to vote as women for 100 years. August 18th marked the 100-year mark of women having the right to vote. So we can't take for granted the rights that we've been given, but we also must reflect on our history that we haven't had these rights for very long. And we still have a little way to go when it comes to things like closing the gender pay gap and there being equality and safety for women in the workplace. So I have a lot of points to make about this topic, and I'm excited to be here.
I think that's great. And then I do know that you have a podcast, so we will put that information down below. So Helena, what do you have to say about feminism in the workplace, given that especially you are in the other part of the world? It is Africa, but it's outside of Africa. What do you have to say?
Okay, so what I have to say about feminism, especially in the workplace in Africa, is that it's obviously very, very different from this side. Seeing that it's something that is fairly new. It's a new culture that is being practiced by, especially as women. And that is just coming from a place where we're still very traditional, we're still very rooted, and obviously our men are still very cultured. So we are not necessarily fighting the struggle of just us being women and sitting and getting a seat at the table and being able to conversate with men. We actually now also trying to fight the culture. We're trying to fight the tradition. We're trying to fight the roots, because we are sitting at a table with men that are brought and raised and made to believe that this is how a man is supposed to be and this is how a woman is supposed to be. So right now, that is generally the fight that we're having, trying to go back into time and fight the culture and the tradition that was put in place to try and see. But it's definitely a fight that so many people are taking on. I should definitely say that thank you so much to so many women that are standing up, to so many men that are standing up, but we have a long way to go. We definitely have a long way to go.
Sorry again. I absolutely agree with her. It is partially cultural. There are still gender roles based on an old patriarchy that somewhat still exists here in America. And what I think we need to do is help men and women of older generations understand that feminism is not anti-men. I love men. Men are great. I'm dating one. They're wonderful people. What we're trying to, I 1000% agree with you. It is cultural. and it is deeply rooted in your culture and in ours as Americans. There is still a patriarchal society that we are living under. And the difficulty I find is that a lot of men still feel like feminism means that we are taking something from them. And it doesn't mean that. It just means we want equality in pay, equality with how we're treated as human beings who share this planet with you. We want to be given the same rights, given the same raises, given the same opportunities, because we're just as smart, just as capable as you are. And that's what's fair. We only want what's fair. And I think
exactly, Jess, I can agree with you more. And as you said, in the US, it's surprising that we still, at this phase, being that the US is kind of looked at as the trendsetter, if you wish. So if we look back in the 2016 elections with Hillary Clinton, we all saw how she was treated. She has like all the qualifications. Maybe some people may not agree with some of her policies, but if you look at the bigger picture, she has like all the qualifications to be a president. But she was judged very, very differently against her male counterpart because she was a lady. She was sometimes characterized as emotionless. And if she exhibits emotions, then she would be called hysterical, right? Because that's kind of some of the stereotypes that women in power are looked at. I definitely agree with you, and it's shocking that we still are talking about equality of pay and equality of opportunity, especially in the US.
What about the men that are also facing difficulties now in the US when they actually have had jobs for years and they're actually taken out of their positions to replace them with women, perhaps that are not as competent? How do you guys view that? Because I'm not saying don't bring in the women, but at least bring in the women that are qualified. But it seems like that is also not happening because it's almost like a trend, or it's almost like a safe place for a lot of these companies to do that. It looks good, so therefore they do it.
I think that there's two parts to this. One, if they're choosing women that are unqualified, then that is a strategy in and of itself to try to discourage feminism in general. Because they can then look back and say, oh, we tried, and look what happened. Because I refuse to believe when women make up 51% of the population, I refuse to believe that none of them are qualified for the position. And I also view what you said similar to nepotism. Sometimes nepotism exists, where they're putting someone in a position who isn't necessarily qualified for that position. But that should not stop the movement.
We want a collaborative effort between both male and female. We're not competing for positions. Sometimes we're put in place just because of how we look or what we can bring in, not in terms of knowledge, which is not what we want. We want to say we have the knowledge, we have the wisdom to be able to help this company succeed. I think sometimes men may bring in people that are less knowledgeable, so they don't feel the threat or the competition to overcome or cover them up so they don't shine. And I think sometimes that may be an issue when they bring people that are less competent.
We should still keep moving forward with what it is we're trying to do, because women who are the next generation are going to change the game. Whether the old regime likes it or not, the game is going to change.
When we talk about feminism, it's not necessarily a fight that we want men out of the way or anything like that. And men also need to understand that we don't want them to not exist. We don't want them to not be the ones in the workplaces. And like you're just asking now is, what about those companies that hire women basically to be props? That's basically what happens. You're hiring a woman, not because she is competent or because she's qualified for the position, but because you're trying to have a prop for your company to say, oh, well, look here, I hired a woman, so I have, in our country, we call it the zebra stripe. Zebra stripe, it means it's the black and white system. And that system is not gonna work because we as women, we don't wanna be hired to just fill up the zebra stripe. We don't wanna be in a workplace to just be a prop. We want to be hired because we are qualified for that position.
When it comes to hiring unqualified women in the workplace, I've actually seen that happen, not just the hiring part, women in leadership roles, that we're not capable of being in those roles. And everybody around them knew that this person is not really capable of the position that they're currently in. It took probably as long of a time to fire them as if it was their male counterparts. Because in one of my workplaces, I recall there was this lady that we all knew was not competent. And everybody was pretty much saying it. It was like, why is she here this long? But the company could not just get rid of her at that point because of the backlash around the equality, and also because she's a female. And she got away with a lot of stuff that a lot of the male counterparts, like if they even did maybe 25% of them, they would have been gone like right off the bat.
If you want companies to succeed, bring in women that are capable of helping that company. And we all think differently, both men and women, even though we are equal and we should be treated equal, but our mindsets are different, our experiences are different. And when you help a woman, like most of our grandparents will tell you, wherever you see a great man, there's a great woman behind that person. So instead of being behind that person, we want to be in the forefront to help you guys lead, and we can all lead together and become a better society.
I think hiring a woman just because of their gender is totally against everything that feminism stands for. So, because when we say feminism, what we really want is fighting for equality for everything that involves working for a job with another man. We should not focus on what gender each one of you is. I think the main focus should be, what is your qualification? If you hire a woman to run a place and she's not capable of running it, that's more of a sabotage to feminism itself. If we just try to hire women just to put them in positions, and at the end of the day, they're not producing well and they're not capable of running that position, then that's going to come back to biting everyone that is fighting for feminism itself. Make sure that we're hiring people that are capable, make sure that we're giving women equal access to education so that they will be able to run offices if they are being hired, and also supporting them along the way when they're running these places as well. Sometimes all we need is just a little support, and we deliver as much as men or even better than them.
Our men must help us succeed in this. Our men mustn't sit back and hold their arms and be like, oh, you wanted the position, now you got it. And then when I fall, they'll be like, you wanted the position, so you need to figure it out. We basically saying that we just want to say, look, we can also do that. And we're at a time and a place where we want to exercise our rights and give us the platforms. But in order for us to excel, we need you, our men, in society, in the workplace, to hold our hand and to help us be successful.
I think I 1000% agree. I became a producer because my boyfriend at the time was a producer, and he said to me, hey, you would be good at this. You have a good ear. You should do this. And he taught me how to be a producer. And still, women producers only make up 2% of the entire music industry. Women behind the boards, they call it. And if it wasn't for his tutelage, I would not be as accomplished as I am today. So there are those rare occasions, there are those men who are doing it, but you are absolutely right. It takes us working together. And who knows what new creations women are going to make. And I think we all have to look at the bigger picture. What medicines and cures for cancer and new amazing creations can be born because of our partnership. I think as a society, we need to stop being so competitive with gender and with each other, and continue to help us create, be in awe of what humankind can create and push that agenda forward with equality and equal respect for everyone. I just want to thank you guys for having me today. I'm very excited. I just want to do a shameless plug for my own podcast, which is called Love Talk Tuesday. It can be found on all the platforms that you can listen to podcasts. And it's conversations with me and my international friends from around the world. I also have a song coming out on Spotify and other streaming platforms on Tuesday, 8th of September. So it's called Circles, and hopefully you guys will play it now. Yes. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessie. We appreciate you being here. See you next time. Now we are moving along to the next segment of this show, and that is the hot seat. And I'm so excited about this segment because it's new and hopefully you all love it. Please comment below if you do. And in this segment, we are actually going to bring you guys trending topics around the world, whether it's in the news or whether it's in social media, and for us to talk it out and have a conversation around it. In the recent hot soup making around social media, it is a conversation about who has it worse. Is it men or women?
I guess it depends on which side of the world you're in. If you're in Africa, I would definitely say women have it worse. If you're in the West, it depends on the color of your skin. In this day and age, like the black men have it worse than the women.
I'm not on Ole's side because men have issues that they're dealing with right now. But you also think about the black women, how much they're having to go through. They're single parents, they're having to do a lot of things. So I think it's still the women have it worse.
So would you trade yourself to be a man then? Because I don't think any of us would want to be a man. So hypothetically, obviously that's never possible, but would you prefer to be a man then if you say women have it worse? I think that men have it worse.
Just because women have it worse, that doesn't mean it want to make me to be a man. I will still continue being a woman. I love being a woman.
I totally agree with Jay.
Of course.
I think the question is a no-brainer. We all know that women go through hell in society. We are discriminated every single day. There's so much pressure on women when it comes to what time they're getting married, when they're having their babies. Like society just thinks that they have a say in everything that a woman does.
Okay, and then on that note too, the man is expected to bring home the bread. The man is expected to become something always in society. There's a lot of expectation put on men. And the woman, you could just say, you know what, I'm out. I just want to stay home, even though being a stay-at-home mom is also a great job or it's a great deal.
That's definitely not the society that we live in right now.
Thank you. I don't know what she's
working twice as hard as men.
Well, you're not gonna have my back. You're gonna pretend they're not talking. I thought we were just together.
There's not much for her to say because it's the honest truth. Yes, men, there's a lot of pressure on men to go find food to do, and we are doing the same thing, but there is no pressure, like Mom said, on men as to what age they are supposed to be married, so otherwise they'll be considered high risk for having babies. They can choose when to marry, but for us, if you want to have a child, there's a particular age that there's this pressure that, or if you don't do that, there's a risk factor involved. So there's pressure on us.
In the next life, we still want to be a woman.
Of course, I love being a woman.
Oh, okay, convenient.
But I know men can't handle being a woman. I can handle being a woman.
Can you handle being a man?
I probably can, but I don't want to.
Depends. Like if you're just talking about people being pressured, I think definitely men usually looked upon as, like you said, the breadwinner. Yeah, society have changed and women have become breadwinners, but that's not like the expectation. In Africa, it's basically as soon as the man reaches a certain age, they expected to go out there and hustle.
What's your take on this? Because right now, I bet you, Amy, if you had to drag stuff out of your car, you would call your brother to get it for you than for you to get it as a woman. Or if you had a spouse, they will go get the heavy lifting, not you.
He wouldn't even get it because men just don't care anymore. They just feel like we're able to do it all. Men assume that we're good because they confuse being a feminist and being strong as like powerful, just strong, because men naturally are just stronger. But because we are fighting for feminism, they thinking that, now that you're fighting feminism, you're able to handle all of this. How about you do this since you want to be a feminist?
Well, you see how they're playing the cards on both sides?
No. That's not playing the cards on both sides.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to.
But the fact of the matter is, we're not even waiting for them to do it anymore.
Because it's like a waste of time if you're waiting for something that's not.
I'm not about to.
Why don't you just do it?
I'm not about to call Bai to come take the trash out when he's going to now take 2 hours to just come and do that, when I could just get up and go get it done. Let's just face the fact. This generation and this day, men are just lazy. Point blank, period. I don't care what anyone says. I'm serious. When you get into a house,
You just call
when you get into a house, most, especially in our society, in the African society, in Gambia in particular, when you get into a house, every single female in that house has a task to do. They're working, they're going to the market, they're lifting, they're pushing, they're pulling. When you go to the banta bus, it's full of all of these men are sitting at the banta bus. All the boys are brewing attire. all the boys are just waiting for lunch to be ready. And they
because you said, Amy, because you said you
But
got
what about
this.
the boys that are taking the back way because they feel a sense of responsibility that they have to provide for the family?
Trust me, I get it. I get it. I'm not downplaying the fact that some of them are the back way. Is that the final say to you being successful? No. If you're useless in Africa, you're gonna be useless in America. I don't care what anybody says. I'm serious. I've seen people who are in America where this is a land of opportunity, right? I'm not judging people and what they do and what they choose to do with their lives, but I've literally seen people. I've been to New York, went to Harlem, and see grown African men loosely, I'm telling you, like drunk in the streets, being homeless. You can also be homeless in Africa. So if you don't work hard in Africa, how do I believe that you're going to come here and do anything for yourself? It doesn't matter. If you work hard in Africa, you come over here and you're gonna work hard. This is a whole nother conversation for another time.
So it seems like we'll never agree on this conversation when it comes to men and women the way we see it. So I'm just gonna stick on my side with Ole, and I'll let Amy, Dr. J, and Dr. Moms be on the other side. And if you're on my side and Ole, please comment below. If you're on Dr. J's and Amy and Mom's side, please comment below also and let us know what you think. Does women or men have it the worst? And in the next lifetime, would you be willing to be the opposite sex? Exactly. Let's go on in the next one of the hot soup conversation. And of course, there's a modern susu that's making it around the world. And it actually, I don't know where it started, but it's made it to every corner of this place. And I've actually had friends that called me and they say they wanted to be part of it. I'm like, what the hell are you thinking? So Ole, please let us know, what is this about?
So the modern day susu, as they're calling it, this is actually not the first time that it has emerged. It's just that this time around, I guess it's more popular in the African community, but it has been around for ages. And usually it comes around whenever there's a depression or recession or times like this. That's when it always rears it. And usually it has an admin. That's the person that actually initiates the process or whatever you want to call it. Usually what they do is they will tell you that you will contribute a certain amount of money. Sometimes they will put in $600. The return will be, let's say, within 4 weeks, you will get $4,000. So that's literally 600% return on investment. I've never heard of that type of return on investment.
Basically, it's too good to be true, Ole, that's what you're saying.
Yes, pretty much, because there's no product, there's no investment. You will be asked that you will need to bring 2 people, and those 2 people will need to bring 2 people. So that's the concept, and that's what keeps it going, as long as you're bringing in more people. But at some point, you run out of people, and that's when the problem starts.
I just think it's a scam, because obviously, if I bring in Juka and Ole, and Juka and Ole don't have 2 other people to bring, then now they're in trouble, right? So it's a scam to me, okay? Sometimes when things are just too good to be true, just don't believe it. I mean, people will tell you, oh, but this person and this person has already received their money. Okay, I get it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get money, right? I've seen people that have put in, I'm telling you, about $3,000 and have lost it all. You could have used that money and buy some stocks and make your little coins, but I wouldn't put my money on this, and that's just my personal opinion.
I'm glad you wouldn't put your money in it, because in the state of Texas, it's actually illegal. Because if it was just like the olden days susu, it wouldn't have been a problem. But with this scheme, like, you don't have equal chances of drawing money back. So once you can draw and be the one to get the $6,000 or whatever amount it is, but the other person may not even get anything. That's why that person that you talked about lost money. In the state of Texas, it's actually illegal. And I think in several other states, if people are watching and don't know, it's also illegal. So they should not get themselves involved in schemes like this.
The way this works is technically your money. If you were to pool $500 every single week of your own money and put it in the bank and put it in your savings, it's going to equal or even be more than what you're doing. Because this is how it works. You put in 500, you bring 2 people, they bring the money. In 4 weeks, you get 6,000. Basically, what you're doing is scamming the people that you're bringing in. If I brought Juka and Jay in, I literally just took their money. So you basically just scamming people along the way. You can call it however you want to call it. You can see it however you want to see it. But at the end of the day, the only reason why it's illegal is because it's a scam.
And some people are not going to actually get their money at some point.
At some point, like Amy said, you run out of people to bring. And so it's the people that are at the top that will, of course, the initial people that will get paid, but everybody in the bottom will pretty much lose out. If it's too good to be true, like we all said, then there's definitely something wrong. If somebody comes to you and tell you there's an investment, I think it's upon us to ask the right questions, like, okay, what is the product that you're investing in? Because all it says is that you're going to bring in 500, and then you bring in 2 people, and then you get a return on investment of 600%. If you really want to invest your money, there's other ways that you could do it. Of course, you will not get 600% because we all know that's not realistic. It's a scam or it's a pyramid scheme. But there's other ways that you can invest your money. And I am in no way, shape, or form a financial advisor. But you could invest in the stock market, invest more money in your 401k if you have a job that offers 401k. Like most companies do matching in 401k. If you put in whatever the amount, they may match it, let's say 6%, or they may match it even like more, like 10%. There's many other different investment options.
Great, but what do you have to say about, let's say what Amy actually mentioned, a little bit of it, is the old-fashioned susu that we're all used to, where you take your own money and you put it as not an investment, but almost like a savings, and then everybody puts their money in a pool, and then you collect your money later. I mean, like for me, I think with that, it's like, okay, back then our great-grandparents were doing it, or our ancestors were doing it because they didn't have any forms of investments to do, or capital to be able to create, do businesses or whatnot, or if they had weddings and stuff like that. That's what they used, right, for ceremonies, right? So like, I've taken my money, now I can go in and do what I need to do with it, which is totally fine. But in this modern day society, people are still doing it. And I think you've actually done it maybe once a long time ago. But what do you have to say about it? What do you guys think about that?
A lot of people are still doing like the olden days susu, as you called it. I think a lot of people do it. One reason is to kind of not get involved in getting interest back, because when you put your money in a bank, you can get interest, and in Islam, that's haram.
You get interest, period.
And the reason why that is Islam is very against economic injustice, because when you look at how banks earn money from people, almost like a scam as well, right? Because you're telling me I'm gonna lend you this money, and every month, the interest can go up to like 6%, 10%. It's basically the rich people getting richer and the poor people get poorer. What Islam is advocating is to, you can invest your money in Islam for sure, but it has to be in a form of a contract where both parties agree on getting a certain percentage of the profit. That way, when things go south, you all kind of are in the same thing together. You know that you lose a certain amount of money, but it's not just one person that's losing and the other one gaining.
So Amy, what Dr. Mans just said, so if I gave you the opportunity to invest your money, okay, in my bank, and I say I'm going to give you a 3% interest rate, would you do it?
Like me and Moms are totally two different people. Like I'm totally doing it. Moms doesn't even have a car note.
But I think it's smart too. Like if you
but I'm just using that as an example. Yeah. Like if she's going to buy a house, she's either going to do it through like a very Islamic way, or she's going to pay cash. I mean, she's rich, so.
If you're getting a house that is primarily for you to live in with your family, it's okay to get it and have like a reasonable interest. The way society is built now, you cannot get rid of interest. Let's just be honest. Wherever you go, you just have to do it sometimes. But in as much as you can, you should try to avoid it as a Muslim. At least that's my belief. Like going to med school, I have loans from med school, and those loans have interest. So I'm going to be the devil's advocate if I sit here and tell everybody that interest is haram. But I think that we should be mindful when we deal with these things.
So Moms, what if I get what Islam is saying about the susu and the interest being haram, because they don't want injustice when it comes to economy or monetary transactions, right? Let's say if you invest and then you get a very small return, and then you give that to like a zakat or whatever you call it, it's still haram? The interest
that's
is still bad?
That's not gonna cure it. What's haram is haram. You can try to change the definition to suit what you're doing, but it's not gonna make
I'll
it
talk to
haram.
God later.
So,
Ole, what you say about this? Have a conversation with God.
Susu. There's really nothing wrong with the traditional susu, and I think for the people that came up with this pyramid scheme, that's how they try to attract people, because they know, especially with Africans, we are aware of the traditional susus. A lot of us have done it in the past, and for some people, the reason why they do it, in addition to what Moms was talking about, the interest, it may be, let's say you need to buy a house, and you don't really have the money, and if you were to save it by yourself, it may take you 2 years to buy the house, right? And maybe interest rates, what Moms just said, but maybe interest rates being low, especially like right now, interest rates are pretty low. So if somebody wants to buy a house right now and you don't have the cash, then one option is to participate in a susu. And by participating in a susu, you're not getting any return on investment. It's basically your money, but you're getting it earlier, and then you're going to pay back the people that are participant of that susu. So the traditional susu, there's definitely nothing wrong with it. Just want to make clear that that's completely different.
Right.
Susu, that's the pyramid scheme that they're calling the blessing, and they're coming up with all kind of names for it.
The traditional susu is actually perfectly fine, and it's people's choices as to how they want to invest and what religion how they want to practice their religion. And when you ask moms about when you buy a house and the loan and the money, all of that, I think in Islam, and mom can agree or disagree, Islam wants us to be as fair as possible to each other. One. Number two, as long as you are not the one earning from it, but you're actually spending towards it, not as bad. What you don't want to do is take somebody else's wealth away from them, knowingly or unknowingly. So if it's a wealth that's taken away from you, let's say you're paying interest, a little bit of interest on your house note, just so you can shelter your family, that's acceptable. Okay, what is not acceptable is you giving Juka a loan and telling them you'll pay me 20% interest or 100% interest.
Are you saying it's okay for me to get the interest, to get that loan with that high interest?
If you don't have an option, if you don't have a choice and you need to have a house to shelter your family, and there's an interest that's like 4%, 3%, whatever percentage you can get, that's perfectly fine.
Well, I guess that ends this segment of the hot soup of the day today. And of course, that was the pyramid scam or scheme that we were talking about. And hopefully we all shared our knowledge in it. And hopefully whoever is watching can take a second look before they put their money in it. Please comment below if you have any hot soup ideas or things that you want us to discuss here on the Sisters Show. Please feel free to do that so we could bring it on as a hot soup next weekend. All right, sisters, thank you guys so much, and hopefully you all enjoyed this conversation as I did and as we did, my sisters here. Please join us here back next weekend. Please don't forget to participate in the mentorship program that we have going on right now. Make sure you submit your videos, because we are definitely starting to get the videos. So make sure you submit your video, and that way we can put you into the mentorship program contest. And also we will be airing some bloopers behind the scenes. Let us know if you want us to share that behind the scenes. We have really a lot of funny moments. Just imagine all of my sisters and what goes wrong and all the conversations that happen. Of course, the back and forth and the funny and the laughters and the moody moments, like from Amy. She had to go right now, but we will see her next weekend. So please do comment below and let us know if you want to see some bloopers on YouTube, and we will definitely do that for you guys. And the bloopers would be behind the scenes of what goes on when we are filming. Yeah, so I'm gonna say bye-bye to my lovely sisters. Oh, and before we say that, actually, let me just make sure that we thank Helena and also Jessie. They were amazing, and I think you guys loved them.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. See you next time right here on the Sisters Show.
Don't forget to follow all of our social media platforms to stay connected.
For the next weekend right here on the Sisters Show.
Buddies are very smart.
Because all my cousins that were in the house and my half sisters all had their periods way before I did.
Because you shouldn't have problems with your fibroids again.
Explain to us like what normally happens, but I know for a fact that it has happened.
So when I was walking like this.
Let me clarify so you guys don't get confused and go get a whole bunch of mama couscous on your breast and then you get an infection, okay?
Ma'am, it's too late.
So Ole, why do you think that was a myth?
It's a myth because it's basically the egg that turned into blood.
Wait, when you mentioned the egg, I was like, ooh, she's going somewhere with this.
No. Fact.
No, you can't change your answer.
No. Fact. I just forgot. Fact.
Can't your hormonal changes make you like impulsive buyer at that point?
That means you're just a shopaholic. That's it.
I don't think it's the parents have actually failed us.
Where I disagree with you like 110%.
When you should start menstruating, what does that mean? Islam talks about this in details. So for us to use that as an excuse is just an excuse.
There might be a few people rolling their eyes. I'm pretty sure my mom, if she watches this, will be like, oh my God, what are they talking about again? We are getting to a point where it should be a crossroad, where we have to decide, do we want to still stay behind or do you want to move forward and be a progressive continent?
The challenges is that we feel like, oh, if we bring it up, we're putting it into their heads. Maybe they're not thinking about it.
The hot soup of the day.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay. If she's in love with her opposite, because okay, listen, guys,
find love. He actually did find love, right? But what we're talking about is it real love?
When that man stands on his money, taller than the girl. End of conversation. Let's move to the next one.
Amy is not married yet.
That's exactly why I'm trying to play safe, honey.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay connected.